Well, thank you so very much. It's my pleasure to present to you the research for the Arts Education Leadership Team entitled, Where Are We in Providing Arts Education in Alabama Schools? A Data-Driven Examination. For a little bit of history, in September 2012, a survey on access and quality of the arts education in public schools in Alabama was administered to school principals through the Office of the State Superintendent, Dr. Tommy Bice. This survey, conducted by South Arts, provided data that South Arts then used to produce their Arts and Education of the South in the South report. I was asked by the Arts Education Leadership Team to take the data collected by South Arts and to disaggregate and examine that data through multiple lenses to see if it could be used to gain a broader and a deeper understanding of access and quality to arts education in the state of Alabama. What I would like to share with you today are the results of the baseline study. In your packet, you have a copy of the executive summary of this baseline study, which highlights some of the findings that I will present today. The executive summary is located on pages 1 and 2 of the Plan for Arts Education, which Diana Green will talk about in detail. As you will see, the key findings from this baseline study indicate not only a lack of arts education in many of Alabama's schools, but also indicated inequality of access to specific populations and areas of the state. For the findings, I focused on 4 statements to categorize the outcomes of analysis: who you are, where you live, where you attend school, and what grade you are in. To begin, we actually took a look at the survey data and looked at access. Access was defined as if art education in any way took place at that particular school, and the number of students who took part in those arts activities or classes. We defined levels of access from high access, where 75% or more of the student body was enrolled in actual visual arts, dance, music, theater courses, along with some other concepts or categorizations, all the way down to little and no access, where students were not participating in the arts in any way. We also took a look at quality, and quality dealt with a number of questions that entailed how many minutes did the students actually spend engaged in the actual arts, how were they actually enrolled, and how were those classes or courses or activities actually handled? Were they state-based or in terms of standards? Were they taught by licensed or endorsed specialists, etc.? Again, defining those into levels of quality from high to minimal. Across the state, we had a fantastic turnout with this particular survey. Anyone knows about survey research, they know that getting those response rates up is very difficult. We had 712 schools who replied with completed surveys, 47% response rate across the state of Alabama, with all counties in Alabama having at least one participating school. That represented a total of 46% of all students enrolled in public education are included in this data. We looked at the data based on school type, based on your population area, and based on the racial and ethnic backgrounds of students. Okay. The statewide findings are in your executive summary in the plan. Statewide, who you are matters. Children who qualify for free or reduced lunch in Alabama have a significantly greater risk of receiving no education or exposure in the arts. African American children in Alabama have a significantly greater risk of receiving no arts education. Where you live matters. 76% of our children who live in rural areas, 63% of children living in urban areas, and 48% of children in suburban areas have no access or minimal access to arts education. And what grade you attend, it matters. 55% of elementary school, 80% of middle school, and 81% of high school children have minimal to no access to arts education. The findings were very similar as we looked at the divisions across the state. We did divide the group initially into Northern District, a Central District, and a Southern District. The Northern District, in terms of where you live and what grade you attend, were very similar to that of the statewide. They did not have a discrepancy in terms of racial or ethnic background in North Alabama. That was not something that was significantly found to have a greater risk. But children who would qualify for free or reduced lunch in North Alabama do fall into this category of having a greater risk of receiving no arts education. In our central division, we did not have discrepancies in terms of SES or in terms of racial or ethnic background, but we did have something that interesting that popped up from the data. Where you attend school matter. Children who attended high schools in central Alabama with arts education were significantly more likely to graduate from high school. Same very similar findings in terms of where they live and where they attend. And for South Alabama is one of those areas where, and I apologize for this being the text being so small, but South Alabama is one of those areas that if you've actually worked, lived, or taught in South Alabama, we know that it's very rural population, and we know that there are some problems in terms of access to education, specifically arts education. So free or reduced lunch, African American children both are significantly greater risk of receiving no arts education in South Alabama. And those children who attended high school in South Alabama with no arts education were significantly less likely to graduate from high school. So those schools that did not have arts education had actually much lower graduation rates. What I wanted to do when I was asked to take a look at this data was to look at it for the data for statewide and report today on how the data actually divided into three regions, the South, the Central, and the North. But the data can actually be looked at through the lens of a single county, a region, a city, a school system, by gender, by race, by school size. Basically, if you have a category that you would like to look at, we can compare it. We can actually look at it. We can define it for you. It can also be compared against the state, a region, the South as a whole, or the nation. So basically, if you need numbers, if you need data, as everyone seems to be interested in these days, I have them. Just ask. With that said, there are still gaps in what we need to know, and we can and should address these gaps with future surveys and update arts education access and quality regularly. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I hope you find this report useful as you advocate for the arts. My contact information is on the screen, quite small, but it also is available in your executive summary. And I would be more than happy to provide any kind of report. If you need data, please contact me. I'll be happy to provide you with whatever I possibly can. Thank you.